right. Good early morning. Let's see. So yesterday I did do like a presentation, or I made a video for the team, because I'm sharing all these learnings with the team as well, where I basically summarize like what we've been playing around with, which is that we try to create this prompt to sandbox. And in what's interesting to me is that it kind of supports this idea that what's our where's our head at when we try to build products with LLMs, and we kind of with this original release of LLMs to the public being this conversational type of interaction, I think our heads are at the wrong place often when we try to implement it in our own products. So because with that mentality, it was more like, okay, let's create a prompt that can just generate a sandbox. And then what we discovered is that the output isn't just like code. It's a very specific structure where you have a template, you have specific files related to what template it is, you have npm dependencies, but you also have external resources. So if you choose like Tailwind, it might populate external resources and npm dependencies. The same with React. So there's quirkiness around that. And then we tried to like fine tune it to see if that made it better. It got like smarter in the sense that it did populate more of the stuff we needed, but it never populated all we needed. So in terms of like running the prompt and opening a sandbox, you never saw anything in the sandbox because it didn't have what it needed to run the actual sandbox. So maybe there's like just need to push more and more fine tuning on that to make it more predictable. But at the end of the day, that fine tuning will be based on old sandboxes. So it would have a lot of information about like old dependencies, old API usage from those dependencies, and so on and so on. But then we just flipped the coin and we explored like not thinking of the LLM as something that magically just does everything. Like the product isn't the LLM. The product is, or like the, I guess, feature in this case. The feature is that you want to create a sandbox, and then you do that in the traditional sense. You think about like how would we actually produce a sandbox, and then you add an LLM. So the LLM is still the enabler for this, but it isn't the feature. The feature is you have a prompt, and you can then choose which template you want to generate the sandbox in. And what happens then is that we can programmatically build up everything that's needed for that template. And the only thing the LLM does is produce code for a single component. And we know we name that component. We have the entry file. We have like the index file. We have everything. And that makes it 100% predictable in the sense that it produces a runnable sandbox, which is great. Still, the code can be hurt by ambiguity in the prompt, but that's a different problem. But one problem that is like still a big problem, I think, is npm dependencies. So if you were to write something in the prompt that makes the LLM think it needs a dependency, or maybe you're explicit about an npm dependency, it's based on all training data. It wouldn't be the actual latest API, or would be an older version. And there's also like new libraries released every day. So if you want to try something new, it wouldn't even know about it. So I think to make that sandbox creation experience good, we could still have npm dependencies here, but and actually drop external CSS resources. But what we would do is that we would check when you try to generate the sandbox, we check what the npm dependencies are. If there are npm dependencies related to the template, so for example, if you click React and you have React dependencies, we will rather replace those with the latest versions, for example, because React is backwards compatible, so that would just work. But then if there are other dependencies, we would have to like give an experience to the user and say, hi, we identified that you needed some dependencies for this sandbox. Like, which version do you want to use? Or at least identify this is the latest version. Say that it might not work because the latest version might have changed its API. Even detecting if the latest version is breaking, right? And then notify that this might not work. But even then, it's like, what if it shouldn't be? Yeah, I don't know. What if it's a new library that's not part of the training data? You would have to manually add it. So maybe that's the thing, right? We wouldn't even have npm dependencies there. What you would rather do is like next to the prompt, you would be able to choose npm dependencies, and we make that part of the prompt. The problem though is documentation. So you might choose an React, or well, React is the template, but Tailwind, for example. You might choose Tailwind, and then it just writes Tailwind as if it's 2022. And that's not what you want. So you would need a way to like do some kind of RAG operation for the documentation, which is incredibly difficult because all libraries has different kinds of documentation. Some of them are documented in GitHub. Some of them have their own web page. Some of them needs to be interacted with to show the correct examples. Like, it's incredibly complicated. But at least I think it would be better to like choose the npm dependencies. It would make it somewhat more reliable, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't necessarily know how to use that npm dependency, which is very interesting. And I think this is where, like, if npm and like other package managers would actually create an AI endpoint for packages, that would be amazing. That's a good idea. So that you provide like a RAG API, and so that when people build solutions, even npm as a CLI tool, would actually have commands to do RAG for npm dependencies, which would include, like, of course, the package, its description, but also have a format to provide documentation, so that all documentation would look the same. It has like a RAG format, the documentation. And it's up to the package authors to provide this. And if it isn't provided, well, then it becomes very unreliable. That would be really cool, to create a service where like the service is there to really just provide efficient RAG for npm packages. That will be interesting. Yeah. Anyways, reflections. So what we ended up with was, and the thing is that we tested with GPT-4, which was super slow, and it's expensive, but we were able to make this completely reliable using GPT 3.5. So it was fast, efficient, and predictable. And we had a tiny bit of prompt engineering for GPT 3.5 to actually make sure that it actually writes the code. But then it's just good old programming that we used to create this experience. So Yeah. I did yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. There was a new release for GPT 4.0, I think they call it. And I do have it here. Let's see. GPT chat, OpenAI. But I haven't gotten access to, yeah. It's faster and better and speaks more languages. I haven't gotten access to the native app yet. I'm very curious to try that one out. And also, as I understand the demos they did, that kind of like fluent interaction or fluent conversation isn't ready yet either. But yeah, we can play around with this. Cool. Yeah, so those were some final reflections on that project. I think that project could work. We would just have to resolve the npm dependencies issue. That's the blocker currently for that project. Yeah, I'm gonna reflect on that. Like, is there a way? Like, could you? This is interesting. We're gonna try something. I wonder if we could use the typing. So all npm packages, they have so we can actually use for example, we can do something simple to begin with. So for example, prompt to JSON, and let's see. Like, there has to be a clever way to make this work. So most packages, they have typings, right? So what if you could go and read those typings? So in package JSON, you have typings, and then you have index. Okay, we're just gonna... Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, this is interesting. Like, the only thing I really want to get out of it is how to call something. Okay, we're just gonna give it. Well, this is create prompt to JSON. Okay, I'm just gonna remove this one because it's deprecated anyways. I just don't want to use too many tokens. But yeah, I have quite complicated typing here, but that's always good to try something quite complicated. Based on this TypeScript typing delimited by triple quotes. Could you tell me how to use this API? Wow. Sure, I can help you understand how to use the TypeScript. The code defines set of utility types of handling, schema validation, and transforming prompts into JSON objects. Let's break down the components and then walk through how to use. Okay, this is very interesting. The schema object consolidates import schema utility, making them accessible as properties of schema. This function takes a schema definition and a function to send prompts, and returns another function that takes a prompt string and returns a promise resolving to a JSON object adhering to the schema. It's very, very impressive. Let's go through an example how to use. Okay, so this is fine, right? I don't think this is prompt. Oh yeah, create a prompt to JSON function. This is very cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. It is very example. Very example. Why did I say example? Wow, where did that come from? Interesting. I mean, uh, yeah, expected. It's very cool. Okay, so but this is interesting, right? What if we could make what if we could create RAG for dependencies based on its typing? So that LLMs can understand how to use the dependency. So that's something that could be done. It's like we have this special file for packages. Like we have the typing files, we have the actual files, we have the package.json file, we have these ignore files. What if we had like a RAG type of file, which would convert the typings into like a markdown documentation? Which is basically, this is exactly what it does. And if you have that, then it should be possible to get it running. This is very interesting. We're gonna think about that. But it's like, how do you know what dependencies to actually? But still, like even for our proof of concept, which uses like Firebase and Vue and Tailwind. Well, again, like Tailwind doesn't have typings, right? So it doesn't work for everything. But for Firebase and for Vue, I think it would be very, very nice to have the typings converted to Markdown. I think we're going to try that as an experiment when we get back to actually ragtime. Because I built the Firebase documentation from the website, and that's like, it has different languages and a lot of text. And that's not my biggest worry. My biggest worry is like using the correct API surface. But still, it's a very complicated API surface. So if there's no documentation on like how to use that, I'm not sure if it's able to infer how to actually use it. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's a very complicated thing. Anyways, so we have this flow, user stories flow. So we're gonna change this. We're gonna say we're gonna have a status. So and status is idle. So that means we're gonna have user stories is still just string. Well, that's the thing. It's not gonna be, well, so we are gonna try a different approach here. So previously I kind of had user stories first, and I had section for behavior and interactions. Now we're gonna keep like building on what we have. So so what I'm imagining is like, we first get a set of user stories, and then when you approve that, we look at each user story in isolation, and we reduce ambiguity for each one by populating it with how does the user interact with the application based on this user story. How does the application state change based on this user story. And then we can also ask, what tools do we need to make this user story happen, kind of thing. And I guess we're kind of mixing idea and planning here, but we'll see what we end up with. I'm just reflecting on how should this look like? How should this look like? Because I'm thinking about the UI as well. I want the initial user stories to be like what we have, which is just a list of like checkbox and a string. But after that, maybe we should, yeah. I'm kind of thinking we should call it tasks. And then we're gonna just base those tasks on user stories. Like, this is how we're gonna flesh out what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, they are tasks. And then what we could do is like each task has a user story. And each task has like user interactions. Each task has a behavior, like state change in the app. Each task could also have some code showing the UI of that. Yeah, because I also want to see how we can make this better, not by looking at the whole, but to what extent can we focus on one thing and kind of flesh out one thing at a time instead of like having the full context all the time. There is a balance there. Like at some point you need a full context to kind of, they affect each other. It's very difficult to isolate tasks. They do leak into each other. But yeah, how should we do this? Okay, we're gonna try this. We're gonna call it tasks. Yeah, are we gonna call it tasks? Let's just keep calling it user stories, and then we're just gonna change the typing. So it's an array of story, user story is a string, interactions is a string, behavior is a string, example or POC is a string. So we're kind of flipping this around a little bit, and then we're gonna say either it's idle, which means you know what, we can actually, no, we need to know if it's idle, because that means it should suggest something. Or we don't even need that actually. Yeah, I'm trying to think about the state management of how to go through this flow. So we start out by fleshing out all the user stories in that array, but then we move into like interactions, but that's one at a time. So it can be idle, or we could be yeah, I think we can just call it like let's do idle user stories. We can even call it mode. User stories, and then mode would be interactions. And in this mode, we need to know which user story index, which is a number, like which user story are we actually focusing on. And then I guess we have the same for behavior, and the same here. And yeah, okay, let's just try this first. I'm not sure how this is gonna work. Okay, cool. And then I guess we have some type issues. Mode. Oh. So if it's idle, we're gonna... Yeah, so now we're getting the user story. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take... Well, since it's idle, like there aren't any user stories here. So we're gonna take these user stories and we're gonna map them. Let's see, user story. And then behavior, it's like still, it's empty. VLC, empty. Let's see. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And then its mode is user stories. And then we're going to do user stories, and we're going to map those so we actually get only the user story. And then we'll get a response on that. And then we're gonna basically do the same thing like we do up here. Oops. Yeah, okay, let's try that. And then, oh, what's all this stuff? Yeah, we need to change this. User story is just an empty array, and mode is idle. Get idea. Return. Let's comment this out for now. I guess that's it. And then we need to fix our UI. Now the problem is that this checklist thing is based on mode is idle. Well, we don't need this mode thing, so we can do state.userStories map. So the problem is that checklist now currently just takes like... We need to change it to something more complicated, because now it can have like each item in that checklist can have... Yeah. So it shouldn't take items. How are we gonna do this? Well, it still needs items, but the items needs to be actually rendered. So items is actually React node. Hi, thanks for the comment. Yeah, there's been a few videos, and it's everything's very raw. It's like I've been exactly where you're at, and I to some extent I'm still there. Like there's so much excitement around LLMs and AI and how we can use them. And then there's this hype that there are these amazing generic things that just magically figures out stuff, which I had like healthy. Uh, well, I get I was caught by the hype, um, but but as I started diving into it, you kind of see where it's really at, and the thing is, I think it can be what it's hyped to be in very specific context. So, for example, yesterday OpenAI released a new model, and like that experience, like this is the hype, right? It's that Chat GPT that's like that kind of fulfills the promise, I think, of the hype. But then as you try to apply it to like way more complex tasks and existing products and all of this stuff, it's you have to have a different perspective on using that tool. Uh, so so yeah, I'm still learning. So it's fun to see other people learning with me. Um, oh, thanks so much. Hey, that made my day. That's really nice of you to say. Um, yeah, it's like this raw thinking. I think it's especially in this industry of engineering and programming, you kind of see these products pop out, and there's certainly very intelligent, smart people behind it, but everyone like struggles through conceptualizing and figuring out how to do things. You, but we kind of sit there and see the end result of it, and you rarely get insight into the raw process of figuring out concepts and things like that. So, and yeah, I'm just getting like I wouldn't do this like 10 years ago. I would probably have too much imposter syndrome to do it, but now I'm like 40. I have two kids. Uh, I don't identify as much with. I love what I'm doing, but I don't identify as much with it. So I don't care if I stumble and go down like the completely wrong path, and yeah, and hopefully that helps others reduce their imposter syndrome as well. So yeah, anyways, let's get back to it. uh, let's see. So since our checklist isn't just a list of strings now, we need to actually pass in the actual items. But then how the hell are we going to do this? But we still have these checkboxes, and those checkboxes are based on the items. Yeah, but we can still do this. So what if, yeah, this is interesting. So what if, oh, this is interesting. Because what we can do now is that we're just going to check the length of the, yeah, we're just going to check the length, and then we're just going to build up like an array of booleans, which represents the checked state. Well, not just booleans. Well, it should represent just the state of the item, which is it checked and has it changed? Yeah. So we're just gonna do that thing, and then whenever the length when do we need to update this? Let's just put it in here for now without the effect. I guess we don't need the typing anymore. So we'll drop that one. We'll drop this one. What did I do? Isn't this correct? Is that? Oh. So we don't need the actual item. We just need to return like a parallel array that gives us the state of the item. And then Uh, what are we gonna how are we gonna do this? So yeah, and we have on updated. Oh, okay, on update. Oh yeah, and now it takes all the. Okay, but this is fine. So this should not be. This should just be that array of checked boolean has changed boolean. I think because what happens now is that you might be writing like changing a user story, and then we'll do an on update when that happens. Yeah, no, we're not gonna do an on update. Where's on? When do we call on update? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's on a click. Sorry. So we're actually just gonna pass. Let's see. We're just gonna pass checked items. So on update doesn't mean like when we actually type. It's when we make a change, we'll click a button called update, and what it will do is tell us which items has changed. Oh, this is a complicated piece of UI. Ugh. And then we have checked items map, and then we're not gonna do user story here. We're just gonna do, oh my god, we're just gonna do items index. So we're just gonna display this item. Oh my god, what's this input? Oh, do we actually have the? What is this input? Oh, is that? Oh, sorry, that's a checkbox, of course. Yes, we're getting there. And then, sorry, I have this mental image in my head. So maybe I can draw it. Sorry, I should be better at drawing. So the idea is that we have these checkboxes like this, and currently those represent just a text of user story, but now we're gonna have user story, and then we're gonna have like interactions for each of these checkboxes. So they're gonna be, I think we're gonna change it to tasks, because it's gonna be like a really detailed explanation of what this thing is. What is this task that we want this thing to do, whatever that thing is, and then POC. And each of them has a string. So based on the mode we're in, we're gonna like first populate all the user stories, so we actually get a list of user stories, and then we move into, and we're gonna prove that list of user stories, and that's gonna, maybe it's gonna lock the checkboxes, like we're kind of locked in the user stories, and then we'll move into each user story and we start like expanding on them. That's the idea. But now each of the user stories has like interactions, behavior, so we need to render that separately. And I'm just thinking about how do we, but I think this one does what it's supposed to do now. This is only about like the checklist, and then the items would have to be, and this is when mode equals, it's So when we're not writing user stories, then we're going to disable the checkboxes. That makes sense. And then these are more like, yeah, let's see what we do with those. And then the items here, I'm just going to take a look at why doesn't this on change? Oh, on toggle. Where's on toggle coming from? Oh yeah, because now has changed. Oh, this is interesting. Of course, it doesn't know when it's changed. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this is going to be a complicated UI, but we're going to make it. So it's just going to be a Boolean array. So we're just going to map over these items. We're going to return true. And has changed. I don't think we really care about this. It's really like has changed is if, yeah, exactly. Like that. And when we toggle it, we're not gonna do this. We're just gonna do this. And then this will just be like this. Okay, so now the only responsibility of this component is it checked or not? And then we're gonna use this text area to actually, so we can export this as a like, not user story, but checklist item. And it's gonna have some text. So we're gonna use like multiple checklist items. So we have, and then we have on change for that. The problem though is this ties into maybe we don't need this update thing. Maybe we should just do this. And then checked items. So we just have on approve. Yeah. This is gonna be great when we get there. Checked items. Then we're gonna drop this one. We still have, yeah, so we're gonna remove this one and this one, and then there's no has changed. Okay, so we're basically just gonna track the checkboxes, and then like we have this generic approve button. Basically from the outside we're gonna evaluate what to do. And then we have the checklist item. And when it changes, we should really change the state. Yeah. Yeah, on change. Yeah, I think this makes sense. Okay, but we're gonna hard code a little bit just to see if we can make this work. So we're gonna say user story. Do we, oh, did I dagnag it? Where did the text area go? Where are you? Text area. Checklist. Oh, sorry. Of course, I created an item, checklist item. So here we should be able to use checklist item, and it requires certain things. Let's just do false for now. Index. Yeah, it doesn't need an index anymore because now we have that on the outside. No index. Oops. And what we need is on change. We're gonna add that, and then we also have text, which is the actual user story. And here we're actually gonna change the user story in place in the state of the app, I think. And this is really state.mode. Not equal to user stories. Yeah, so what's interesting here is like we have this checklist item. So we're mapping over each. Yeah, so what we're gonna do here, we're gonna change this a little bit. And then we're gonna say user stories. Or user story, sorry, user story. And then we're gonna have like interactions. And we're gonna have behaviors. And then we're also gonna have a POC. And currently we only have the user story there, which is fine. So I think we should be able to populate this now. So we can kind of see it coming together. Let's try. Yeah, let's change. We shouldn't do this. So what we should rather do is we're gonna check user stories length. If we have that length, we're gonna render the checklist. And if we don't have it, we're just gonna say, oh, please tell me what you want. Yeah. So let's have a look. Just got an SMS there. Oh. It's like I live in Norway, and on Friday it's our like Independence Day kind of. And the weather, like we just got, it feels almost like summer actually. And the weather is amazing. Was amazing yesterday, and it's gonna be amazing tomorrow, and it's gonna just peak on Friday. So we're planning to have a meet up with the neighbors and get the kids to bed early so we can have some drinks and support each other in these times of parenting. We need that. I don't understand how. I think that's the number one reason why people or parents split up with young kids, is that they don't have other parents and family to lean on. Like nobody teaches us how much effort, well, not effort, that's the wrong term, but how, just generally, how much it requires to do parenting. And you question yourself all the time. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And if you don't have anyone to like honestly lean on, who's honest with you about how they try to cope with everything, and you don't have family that understands you but are kind of like, hey, I don't remember it being this such a struggle raising you kids, then you're pretty much fucked if you don't have that. So yeah, it's important to have good neighbors, at least in this society where, well, I'm talking for Norway, of course, where our culture has completely changed. It used to be much more community focused. Like when you had this traditional family formation of like the father typically was working all the time and the mother was at home with the kids. There was much more like that. Isn't, I'm not saying that's fair or anything, but it had the benefit of community because then the parents were home with the kids and they created their own community in the neighborhood. Um, while now you need two working parents to pay the bills and you ship the kids off to kindergarten. And when you get home, like everyone's tired, you don't want to talk to your neighbors. And we kind of lose this sense of community, which is really, really sad. But yeah, we're lucky. We're in a good neighborhood with parents in the same situation. Anyways, I don't know why I'm talking about this. Let's see what's happening here. Yeah, I don't have. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so this is basically what we're doing. We have the user story. As a user, I want to be able to write the description of task and task management, and then we're gonna have like interactions and stuff. Let's. Why are these so small? Let's do a class name of font bold. Is that the class? Why don't I have? Yeah, font bold. There we go. Wow, this was a big checklist item. Did it have block width full PB? Do I have a margin? PB? But that's like, why is it so block border bottom? Yeah, why is it, why does it have such a, oh, of course, it's, I don't have a border around it. So now it's like, oh, I can't interact with it. Oh, did I change the state of it? Did I change the mode? Let's see. Where are we prompting the thingy? Suggest user stories. So we're getting the response. Oh, yeah. So mode here would now be user stories. Sorry. We're going to change that. So now we're going to get the user stories there and we can play around with them. We can't really change them, but we're not going to try that. These are getting pretty big though. I'm wondering. Anyways, we'll just explore. I'm really curious about like flipping into the mode of interactions and then taking like one at a time and see what happens. I wonder if like maybe this should be like a summary where you don't have the full context, but we use the main window to kind of show everything. So this would be like, it would just show you like the context of what you're currently doing. And then we have the right side that shows like all of them with everything. But for now, we can do that last. Write a description of a task and task management interface. Yeah, that's great. I want to be able to add a task description to a list of tasks. Great. What's our next step? Our next step is that we want to approve and change the mode. And when we change the mode, we're gonna go in and we're gonna ask it to suggest interactions for the first user story. Yes. Okay. But before we do that, we're going to do a tiny little refactor here because we have this thing called agent functions. And I think it even has access to, let's remove this. OpenAI, yes. So what we're going to do here, we're rather going to insert our functions in agent functions. And we're going to rename this to, I think we're just going to call it functions. So this is like everything we want to do. We could call it like tools, utils, but I think now we're just going to call them functions. And they are different things. They call RAG, they write files, like they can do a lot of different things. Run a terminal, like run the dev server, like all kinds of stuff. So we're just going to call it functions. I even have a port detector in here. And then we are gonna reset run, don't care about that. We're gonna move our, let's see, where are you at? Suggest user story. So this is just gonna be one of the, and then we have send prompt. Let's see. We need to move send prompt and add message into functions. Let's see. So that's part of functions, because now we're using LLMs as functions. So sending a message is just part of that. And we still, I think we have everything we need here. So usage is coming from whatever, GPT model, whatever. Oh, we need the pricing stuff. This is going to clean up quite a bit, actually. So let's do this. Oh, nice. And then we can move, where is it? Suggest user stories. This is rather going to be a function. So that's private stuff. And then we're going to do create prompt to JSON. Schema is also coming from that. Cool. So now we have the ability to suggest user stories. And here we're going to just say this functions suggest user stories instead. I could even like call it get user stories or something. It's very interesting, like when you have this perspective, what happens, how you think about it. Okay, so I think we're good. So what we want to do now is, so this is when we actually send a message. And what we are dealing with now is like handling like conversational input during the different modes. So this is the idle mode where we need to suggest some user stories. And then if we are still on user stories and we are suggesting something, we are passing in the user stories, and then we're creating new user stories from that. But this is getting quite verbose. I think we need to split this up into different things. So like these state updates are so verbose, it's crazy. But let's just continue on this. So if it's idle, so we can just keep going here. Else if current flow mode is user stories, else if current flow mode yeah. Oh, not behavior. Let's do interactions first. I think we should be able to, yeah, so we're gonna have like a suggest interactions. So this is kind of nice. Like now we can just say suggest interactions schema, and this is just gonna be a string. Schema string. Or maybe it should be an array. What are interactions? I haven't thought about format here. Should just be a string, like, yeah, because this is returning like a full set of user stories, which makes sense. But now suggest interactions, yeah, of how the user would interact with the application user interface, how interact with the application. Yeah, we need to start somewhere. So suggest interaction, and this is really like, this is when we actually prompt it, but we're gonna, when we approve the user stories, we're gonna move into the actual interactions mode, and we're gonna immediately suggest the first interaction. So we can rather go down and just test that, and then we're gonna continue from there. So on approve, oh, what was that? Approve. Oh, where's that? The on approve click. Where is that? Did I remove it? So this is on send assistant message, on change flow. Oh, did I use on event? Oh, where the hell did I put that thing? So when I approve, we have API approve. Oh yeah, approve user stories. So this is not going to be approve user stories. This is going to just be the kind of next thing. But let's just use approve user stories for now. And then I guess we need to add that here. And disposable, this Electron API on approve user stories. Yeah, this is just this is like just a button click. So we're gonna need to check the, let's put it here. We're also gonna track the usage here, but we're gonna do that more as a separate thing. So you kind of see it like the summary of usage. So let's just implement, we need the current flow. Let's do the same thing as here. So this doesn't make sense, right? This should just be like, go to the next thing. And then this logic knows how to go to the next thing. So we're just gonna check if current flow mode equals user stories. So this would be the thing. Yeah, this is really what we need to implement. So we need to change the state of this thing. So the mode now is behavior, and yeah. So, and the index will be 0, which means that, yeah. So user story would be this state. Oh, sorry. Where is it? Current flow. User story is map. Not map. We're just going to grab the first one. So based on this user story, it's going to suggest, not behavior, interaction. It's going to suggest an interaction. So we're going to wait for that. Interaction or interactions. Await this functions suggest interactions. And we're going to, from the following user story, delimited by triple quotes. I kind of like this. It seems to work pretty well. User story. Describe how the user would interact with the application. Or suggest how the user would interact with the application. So we still have, yeah, so we don't really need to change the user stories. We just change the mode. Oh, sorry. No, we do user stories, and this would be, oh my God. This, yeah. Yeah, so we can rather say current flow here, right? So that would be current flow user stories. But we're gonna slice. So we're gonna repopulate the first one. This is, and then we can say interactions is the result of that thing. And then we're gonna slice the rest of them. So this will be how we actually just, when we approve user stories now, we should get a suggestion on the first interaction. That's basically what we're doing here. And then we just have to make sure that we actually show it. So this would be, if we don't have interactions, and this should be interactions. Yeah. Okay, let's check it now. And I think we're going to move pretty fast when we kind of figure out exactly how we want this thing to work. Tell me what you want. I want task management thingy. Yeah, as user I want to blah, blah, blah. These are the same user stories. Now I can approve, and I can also change. Well, I can change these. They're not stored at the moment, but that's a detail. So what should happen now is that I approve, and then these should be locked, and we should get our first interaction. Approve. Yeah. Either through a menu option or dedicate. Yes, this is interesting. Yeah, and I do think like here we're gonna show like the summary of what we're doing, and then we're just gonna isolate on the specific thing here. That's gonna simplify the UI as well. Yeah, that's gonna simplify a ton. Yeah, that's gonna be nice. We should do that next, but let's see what happens here. So the user would interact with the application by accessing a right task description feature either through a menu option or dedicated button. Upon selecting this feature, the user would be presented with a text input field where they can type in the description. After the user would likely have the option to save or submit the task description for further use. Yeah, that's right. That is right. And it's just like a suggestion. So yeah. And this is fine. This is perfectly fine. This is what we're exploring now. It's like very ambiguous thing. Like this can be sold in many different ways. And then it will just suggest, like there's so many ways you could write the description of a task, right? So this is what we're exploring here. How should the user actually interact? And then we're gonna describe how does the application state change based on that interaction, and then maybe a proof of concept. But yeah, this gave me an idea to oh, I'm so hungry for some reason. Let's see. We're gonna change the UI here. So oh, are we actually gonna so yeah, I think we actually gonna I think we're gonna revert the UI, because what I realize now is when we're doing user stories, we focus on the user stories, and then when we approve that, we're gonna show the user stories on the right side, and then we're gonna have like a heading of like how does it we're gonna show like the user story and then describe the interactions. So, which is going to be a different UI. It's not going to be a checklist even, because we're going to look at each item in the checklist. Let's see. Yes, we're actually going to revert that file. User stories flow. We're going to revert checklist even. Discard changes. And user stories flow. Discard changes. Okay, let's see how this looks like now. So let's see. Yeah. Okay, so we still have like the proper state here. So what we're gonna do is actually gonna check if state mode equals idle. Well, let's just switch on the state mode. Case idle. We're gonna return. Please describe what you want to implement, and then we're gonna show. Oh yeah, so that should be this one. And then let's see this one. Oops. That's the idle case. And then for the user stories case, we're gonna also return something, but we're actually gonna return the checklist. So the checklist here now has items would be it would be state user stories map user story user story like that. And then we're gonna do, well, these are never gonna be disabled actually. And then we have on approve, on update. Okay, so we're gonna have this checklist of user stories. We're not gonna make them interactable currently. We're just gonna show them. And then we're gonna, when we approve, we're gonna say API on approve user stories. Yes, we're only showing the user stories. And then when we move into interactions, we are gonna return something else. We are gonna return, because we have the index now, right? So we know which user story. It's the neighbors that's writing. Let's see. We can share like stories from our like struggles and and be ashamed in we can be ashamed together. That's what I mean, right? That's the kind of neighbors you want. People who can have this like kind of dark humor on what it means to actually be a parent, but in that way, giving a lot of support for each other. It's basically just what it really is normalizing, because you know how the society in general, like you have all these like social media that's trying to depict this fantastic image of your life. And one thing is like when you're young, you're insecure about how you look and like your goals in life. Which I'm not saying that's rough with social media, like how that makes young people depressed. It definitely does. But it also happens for parents. So you have different social media there. You have like I guess Instagram to some sense, but mostly Facebook, where people are like um, depicting this amazing family life, and they never share anything like of the struggles, like everyday struggles. And what happens as a parent is that you don't feel like you live up to like what's normal. So you think it's normal that everyone's just happy, um, and so on and so on. So you kind of you need some point of um, like what's it called? Um, you need someone to relate to. That's the thing, so that you can understand what is actually normal. Mm. And social media isn't helping us in like in any phase of life. So social media is not helping us realize what is normal. Social media isn't normal. It's like a hand-picked peak moments of life, which isn't life. It's just moments in life. And it's terrible. Social media is terrible. Anyways, yes, I feel really lucky that I understand what normal is. I know what normal is, which helps me cope better with when things get like rough. Mm. What were you doing? I don't know. I'm such in a reflective mood today for some reason. Um, User story. Let's go and grab the current user story so that we can work on the interactions. So that would be state user stories state index dot user story. So this is the actual user story. So we can say something like this. Yeah, let's just I'm not sure how this is gonna look. Let's just shove the user story in there. And maybe we could even have like the index. So let's do index, state index plus one, and then the user story. But we are going to use this text area. You know what? I'm just going to take it. And we're going to shove it in here. It's never disabled. The value here is, well, yeah. So this will be user story dot. Oh, sorry. Oh, let's do. Yeah, this is a little bit about interactions. And then we currently don't have like a change thing for this, but we're gonna have that later. Whatever. And then we still have new chat message. It's kind of like the terminology here is awful because we had so many iterations. But now when we move into the approval, we should now have a much simpler UI. And then we need to populate our... So I think we're just going to do like a markdown thing. So let's use markdown. And we're going to list our user stories. How are we going to list this? Okay, so we're going to do it by like number. So let's see. Let's do... We're going to keep using user stories here. And then we're gonna map over user stories store. Oh yeah, so we can do, let's just do state here. We're gonna map over our user stories. User story, and we're gonna have the index here because we're gonna wait. What did I do? What did I do? Why is it so weird? There we go. So we're gonna say we're gonna do the same index plus one dot. I'm not sure how well Markdown does this. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna do user story. And then we're gonna have the actual user story there. And then we're gonna try to like, I don't know, do something like this. And then we're gonna do, and then we need to join these. By the way, I always forget to join them. And then we're gonna have interactions. And then we're gonna have interactions. Okay, something like that. Let's start with that. Cool. Let's see how this looks. Oh. Let's just where? What did I do? Markdown. P. I think there's like a container thing, P4 or something. Yeah, fine. Blah blah blah. Now we should see just a list of the user stories. Oh yeah, and then interactions needs to be. I wonder what happens if I do this. Yeah, then it messes it up. I'm not sure how you can make. How do you do line breaks in a list? I'm actually very curious about this. Am I getting markdown line breaks in list? Oh, 2 spaces. Interesting. Will this work? Look at that. Nice. I didn't know that. I learned something. Cool. So now we have that. When I prove this now, we should actually see this change to like the first user story, and we should see interactions populating. Yeah, and that does happen. Wow, we need a, let's see, height, age full, overflow y auto. Okay. By opening task creation, this could involve typing in description in a text field, selecting option from the or using other input method. So the thing is, like, there shouldn't be any ambiguity here. By the way, we're gonna make this much bigger. Yeah, but this is kind of nice. Okay. But what we can do is, like, I don't like the suggestion that it's making. I think it could probably be more. Should yeah, but this is like, again, like, this proof of concept is to help someone who doesn't know how to code. So it's not like it's not like wrong. This could involve typing in the description in a text field, but at the same time, I know users are lazy, so they would like just approve this. But this is too ambiguous. So I don't want it to like suggest. Design how the user would best interact with. Okay. We're gonna try that. And we're not gonna get hung up on the actual, like, we're partly like exploring, I wouldn't call it prompt engineering, but like what kind of, when we know what we want to, so first we have to figure out what do we actually want out of it. In this sense, we think about the interactions, and like what's the flow and everything, but also like per output from the LLM, like specifically what do we want you to write to us. So yes, interactions, but how should you describe those interactions? Approve. By input into text or a text area. Okay, but this is good. This is better. I don't want there to be okay, but this is by into input field or a text area. Okay, but that's better. So we're just gonna leave it at that, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna allow you to approve it. So we also need, that will be here. Where's the approve button? I just need the approve button. Oh, use the stories flow. It's in the checklist. Approve. Let's grab that button. This looks pretty shitty, but I don't care. And I guess, yeah, so here we could like ask it. The point here with this prompt is to like use the prompt to adjust the interactions. So I could say, I think an input is enough. And then it will kind of resuggest that. And we're going to implement all of that, but like it just takes time. So for now, we're just going to, we're not going to like interact and change anything. Like we have the ability to do so, but it just requires some more programming. But now we're just going to accept everything it suggests. and kind of get through the flow, and then we're going to see, like, review and reflect on how we think about this flow. So we have the text here. What happens if I just shove in a button here? API approve user stories. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna approve the user stories. So if the current flow is user stories, we did that suggestion, and then I guess we do an else if current flow.mode equals interactions. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna we're basically gonna do the same thing as here, but we need to know, we need to bump the index. New index is current flow index +1, and then we're gonna check if yeah, let's just call it user story, current flow user stories new index, and then if we actually have a user story, we might be at the end, right? And if we are at the end, we're going to move into the next flow and suggest behaviors. But if we have a user story, we're going to change the state. Well, we're basically going to do this thing. Ah, it's so verbose. Ugh. Okay, but let's just copy it. Oh, yeah, we need this one. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do this, and then we're gonna say user story dot user story. Because now we have the user story, so we're just gonna copy. Yeah, like this code can be written so much better, but I don't care. So this would be new index, and then this would be so we're gonna keep from 0 to new index, and then I think this is like new index +1. I think that's the deal. I never remember this. So this would be user story, and then await interactions user story. Okay, so this should give us a next one. And then we can move into behaviors. Let's see if this works first. Let's see, I'm gonna work a bit with a colleague today. He's not here yet, so we'll just continue on this until we approve. These within by entering this, and yes, this is great. And then what happens now? I approve that. Look at that. The user will by clicking on add task button, then filling out the form. Okay, so this is bad, but I think this is fine. Like, it's gonna be, it doesn't. Now this points exactly to what I was thinking about. Like, how well can you isolate tasks? So in this case, the first task is to implement writing the description of a task, and it beautifully handled that. But then the next user story is, as a user, I want to be able to add a task to a list, and of course it would suggest that, okay, if you want to add a task to a list, I only have that context, you should add task, have an add task button, and when you click that, you fill out the form with details and then submit to add the task to the list. But that's not really what we have in mind. And the question is now, is that okay? It's just a suggestion. Like, this user story can be anything, right? Sometimes it will be right. Sometimes that would just be too ambiguous, and you would need more help from the user to understand the expectation. But what we can also do, we can give it the context of that we already filled in this part, right? So it already knows that we have this user story with this interaction. So then with this user story, what should the interaction be now? So it would probably be better. But this user, as I said, this user story could be anything. It's not necessarily a continuation of the previous user story. And this is where I'm feeling things are like, I don't know how to do this in a good way. How do you create isolated tasks that you can act on? I don't know how to do this in real life either. It's very, very difficult. Like, I think, well, so I like had a role of tech lead many times, and some things I really enjoy is when I have like the full picture of everything that needs to be done, and then figure out how to split that up into actionable tasks so that one leads to the other. But that, as I said, it requires me to have the full context. So that's why my question is it a requirement to have the full context to be able to describe one task in isolation? I guess that's a given yes. Well, not always. Like, how much, we're not like, how much context do you need to write a task in isolation? And that's the thing, you don't know that. Like, you can do it sometimes, other times you can't. So in this case, it heavily depends on this other one. It doesn't depend on, so that's the funny thing. It doesn't depend on these ones to be able to write a suggestion for the interactions there. But it does rely on this one. And it's not necessarily because it's the previous one. It just happens that the way these user stories are described is that they have like this. Yeah, I find that very, very interesting. Yeah, so the big question is, should we give more context? But it's kind of weird, right? Because then when, as a user, I want to be able to delete tasks from the list, you would have to give, it would then give all the context of everything else. But I guess it makes sense. Okay, so we're gonna try that. So that's like the next step. Let's see if we just give it interactions from the following. We currently have the following user stories and interactions, delimited by triple quotes. So, but this would just be like, we'll just stringify the JSON of this. So that would be current flow user stories slice 0 to new index, I think. Because that is that excluding returns section for both, and the end of the, this is exclusive of the element at the index end. Yeah. So this would be inclusive of the element at the end. Yeah, I think this is right. Yeah, so we're just gonna JSON stringify that. We should probably look at this prompt to make sure we actually send in the right thing. Prompt, const prompt. What happened? Oh. Wait, what did I do? Oh, sorry. For the next user story, delimited by triple quotes, decide how the user will best interact with the application. Okay, so now we're giving it some additional context. Let's see what it does now. Oops. Yeah, whatever. User will by accessing a page where they can input a description of task and save it using a. Yeah, but this is okay. Save button, whatever. I'm curious what it does on this next thing. When I'm clicking, okay, we don't know. But did it actually get the additional context? Oh, I didn't actually log it. That's my bad. Sorry. Prompt. Oh. Okay. Please split it up into multiple user stories. Oh, funny. Like it did do it. You can see it here. But I'm not updating the interface because of the internal state of the thingy. We can fix that. But yeah, I'm just gonna approve it now because we do have the correct state. The user can by opening a task creation form where they can write the script and then save or submit the task to be added to the task. Okay. I'm just gonna. Oh, it. I think it does like a continuation of it. Yeah. Clicking on the add task button. Yeah, I don't like this. No, I don't like this. Because this is kind of the thing as well. I don't want this to become I want to avoid prompt engineering. I want to avoid prompt engineering by giving structure. You know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna do what we did. We are gonna allow tasks to be defined in isolation, and then it's up to the user to provide that additional context. Like, we're not gonna make the LLM have the broad picture. Like, they're not like these functions. They should be small and specific. And it's the user that has the full picture of what they want. Like, at the end of the day, that is what the user is. The user is the full picture. It's the full context. It's not the LLM that has the full context. Because what does that mean? That means you have to transfer the context in your mind to the LLM. And that's very, very difficult. Like, we can't even do that as human beings. So I think that's we're gonna draw this. That's an interesting reflection. Where are we? Let's move back to the other drawing. Is this one? Yeah. Where's my reflections? Yeah, I'm gonna remove this stuff. And then we're gonna, like, what's the job of the user? That's not a head. This is a head. User. The job of the user is to like, it has the full context but doesn't have the details, right? Full context without details. And then what you're gonna do is, like, we're gonna have some sort of flow where the user is gonna use it, the user's understanding of the full context, to create the details of that context. That's what we're doing. We're detailing, reducing ambiguity of the full context. So not transfer full context, but find details and reduce ambiguity. Like, this is what we're doing. Not transfer full context, but find details and reduce ambiguity. Not transfer, create full context. Because I think that's what we, to some extent, expect. It's like, I'm just going to give it this prompt. It is going to create a full context of what it needs to do. And that full context that it figured out should be the same as my full context, which it never is, right? So what if we just don't do that? We're going to say the user knows the full context, and then, but the user doesn't know how to implement that full context. The LLM does not have the full context, but it can help you find the details of how to implement that full context. Okay, we need to write all of this. So okay, like, what do we sorry, I kind of have this mental image. So what do we expect without implementation details? Let's keep it coding context. So full context without implementation details. What do we expect? Prompt. How should we put this? What do we expect? Transfer context. Transfer full context. Is this what we expect? Do we expect our user to be able to transfer the full context to the LLM? Identical full context of the user plus implementation details. Is that what we expect? If you expect that, that's not doable, because that's in the hands of the user. It's in the hands of the user to convey their full context. That's never going to happen. So, but does it mean that, I think I lost my trail of thought. Yeah. Transfer user context. Let's see. Recreate user context. So that would be a similar full context. So what I mean here is like if you're going to transfer user, yeah. So what I mean when I say transfer user context, user has to describe in excruciating detail. What? How do you write that? Excruciating. Excruciate. Excruciating. Okay. As to write in excruciating detail their context. Humans are bad at transferring context in real life. Like we're really bad at that. So the point is to show that this is not what anything you can really do, transferring context in real life. And user creates ambiguous describes their context in an ambiguous way with their context with ambiguity, and we just expect the LLM to read our minds. So this would be like, this would be an actual transfer of user context, which requires like a bunch of details. And then recreate user context, where user describes their context with ambiguity, and we just expect LLM to read our minds. So this is kind of like what we're doing here. It's like I'm copying this very ambiguous thing, right? And then do we expect LLM to actually be able to act on that and do something? But I don't think that makes any sense at all. So what we actually want to do is not recreate user context. What we want is to have this interaction of it's a different full context. Plus implementation, whatever. So what we really want is, yeah, so, oh, come on. So let's see. What we really want is the user to provide from full context. So the LLM should stimulate the user to flush out details about this full context, but it can't do that as a whole, right? Or maybe it can at some point, but currently, like if you give this very ambiguous prompt, you couldn't have like one LLM where you just prompted to, hey, figure out all the implementation details of this through a conversation. I don't think that makes any sense at all. It would be incredibly difficult to figure out when that ambiguity is gone. It will be horrible for the user. You jump around. Like, I don't think it would be a good experience at all. So from full context, help. So I'm not sure if there's implementation details. Maybe we should call it tasks. Without full context, without tasks. Plus tasks. Without tasks. A different full context plus tasks. From help create tasks. What do I mean here? User full context without tasks. From full context, help create tasks. And then from suggested tasks, stimulate user to convey context. Yeah, whatever. Something like that. I don't know. This wasn't exactly what I was. It doesn't have full context. Tasks without full context. This was what I was getting at. The user has full context without tasks. The LLM kind of has, well, it's not even the LLM. It's really the app. And then LLM is just one way of producing. Yeah, so this would be the app, where LLM is just one tool to create tasks. Yeah, something like that. So you would have like RAG. You would have like LM and whatever else. Anyways, yeah, I didn't explain that very well. It broke down a little bit. But anyways, what were we doing? Yeah, we were removing this. I didn't like this. That was our... Well, I guess what I want to say is like, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to expect the app to have the full context. This is what the user has. The app should only be concerned about creating tasks. And the user needs to approve all the tasks. And the app has the tools to make good suggestions and make sure we cover everything we need to do to actually produce a valid task. And that means that, and those tasks should be in isolation. Yeah. Yeah, so we were just gonna remove that. That's what we were doing. Let's see. Yeah, my colleague is here. Okay. I need some food as well, so I have to drop out. Okay, happy about those. User can by tapping the and then by clicking on a submit button, whatever. By entering a task and clicking on an add task button to add it to the list of tasks. Yeah, so yeah, it's really interesting. I want to be able to add a task to a list. Those two user stories are so related. It's easier. I want to be able to write the description of a task. By clicking on a submit button. Yeah, it's interesting. Anyways, let's see what it comes up with. So you want to be able to see existing tasks. You would interact by logging in logging in and accessing a dashboard or menu where they can see a list of existing tasks. This could be in the form of a task list or Kanban board where they can view their status and any relevant details. But again, like, we have a very ambiguous user story. Um, so this is a good suggestion. Like, we haven't said anything about logging in. And the user would have to say, no, I just want to see them in a simple list, right? So maybe, like, you could even argue at this point that there's a shit ton of value in not having any suggestions at all. Just having like user stories, the user inserts user stories, and then they insert interactions, and then they insert behaviors. Like that in and of itself is a good tool to create tasks from this very ambiguous context. It stimulates it's not the LM that stimulates the user, it's the actual like user interface of the application that stimulates the user to describe what they're actually thinking about, what's in their head. And then we're just using an LLM to kind of suggest something. Yeah, and it's almost like this could be like a placeholder, almost. But yeah, I think I like this because it should give these suggestions so that the user can evaluate. But maybe at this point, the user sees, oh, by logging in, yeah, I haven't thought about that. Should you be able to log in? And then, yeah, but maybe that's fine. Maybe they would keep that. Yeah. Anyways, let's approve it. And then let's see what it does on last one. And then choosing a delete option or button. This could be achieved by having a delete icon or button next to each task or button. Yeah, but what we could do here is like we could even kind of no, let's not. There's so many possibilities in terms of like user experience there, so we could do a lot of stuff. But what we're gonna do is I'm thinking about how we're gonna develop this because I don't want to go in and like redo all of this all the time. So what I think we should do is I'm gonna stop streaming because I need some food, and then we're gonna implement like storing our current state so that we can continue in this state when we open up the application again. And then we're gonna implement, and then we're actually gonna implement the possibility to change these. And I think we're also going to have like a next and previous thing. And yeah, I think we need to implement some more stuff so that we can actually produce a good state that we can continue like adding behavior and like the proof of concept thing. But it's also interesting, like, how does these things depend on each other? Like the proof of concept is like, I don't think that should be part of the user story because the proof of concept should be about all of them. Yeah. So this kind of user experience is just to flesh out exactly what did you mean by that super ambiguous prompt. And then yeah. Yeah, I was thinking I would just do it very simply. Like it's just a JSON of the state. And then since the like next and previous is driven by the state now, like what mode are you in, what index are you on, that's also just stored in the file system. So it kind of we just need to read the JSON file from the file system and then populate the state with that, and then it just knows where it's at. But it's interesting, like with Git, I thought about when you think about these assistants writing code, there's an abstraction over code, which is like commits. What do you actually want it to do? Like when you ask it to do something, do you want it to really write the code, or do you want it to actually create a commit? Because the commit holds the code change. So it would be like, it doesn't actually try to update the code even, it creates a Git patch. So what would happen is like you create an experience where the goal is to create a commit. And then you apply that commit to the file system, or yeah, to the actual project. The point isn't, I don't have history. I'm not sure if history makes sense here, because when you do go back, it's not like go back historically. It's like move to this user story and make a change there. Move to this user story and make a change there. So it's not like rolling back. It's more like navigate between the current user story, basically. Yeah, maybe history would make sense. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But yeah. Yeah, Git is pretty amazing. It's yeah, it's really amazing. But yeah, cool. I need some food, and then I'm gonna help a colleague with some stuff today. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to stream again. Um, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, we have at least a trajectory now. We're gonna see this through and see what we end up with, and then we're gonna see like how like reflect on how well were we actually able to like produce some concept of a task from this ambiguous idea we had in our head. I think it would have to be tomorrow because I have 2 meetings today. But I think I have time tomorrow. Let's see. Yeah, tomorrow should be fine. Yeah. If you have time tomorrow, that would be perfect for me. Yeah, just send me a calendar invite sometime tomorrow that suits you, like between, well, I'm up early, but yeah, before 1 p.m. at some point before 1 p.m. Yeah, that would be super. All right, I'll jump off and we'll talk more tomorrow, maybe later. I'll see if I can squeeze something in. Having a grandma that says fine as, yeah. I like her already. Okay, bye for now.